As we look at getting back to the basics of blacksmithing here at Black Bear Forge, the fundamental skills are the place to start. And there's probably no more skill fundamental to basic blacksmithing than drawing out. Simply put, drawing out is making a bar longer and thinner in at least one dimension. You can draw it out into a long, skinny taper, square, round, octagon, whatever shape you want it to be. You can draw it out parallel into a flat or, again, a square or round or whatever other shape you need. But there are some practices in drawing out that will make your life easier. To do this today, I'm going to be working in a little gas forge from Atlas Knife and Tool. It's a very small little gas forge. Economical. They sent this out for me to take a look at. I have not used this forge yet. This is going to be the first heat I've ever taken in this forge, and I will do a more thorough review on this maybe later this week after I've had a chance to use it and can see how it works and see what we can do. I'm going to start with a piece of 1/2-inch round bar, and we're going to make a little fire rake that we can use in the coal forge, even though we're going to be doing it in this little gas forge today. But this will give us a chance to look at a couple of different principles that apply to drawing out in just about every circumstance. When drawing out bar, regardless of what shape you're starting with, the general rule is forge it out square, then go to octagon, then go to round. And by square, I mean square 90-degree edges. If you're doing a rectangular bar, you don't have to bring it down to a square and then flatten it back out again into a rectangle if that's what you're going for. But when you're going to a round bar, start by forging it out square, even though you started off with a round bar. This will greatly improve accuracy, efficiency, and it really keeps things under control and will give you better results. Take the time at the end of each heat to straighten the bar up if it's getting crooked, and this will keep it from getting way out of control in the long run. We will round this bar back up before I'm all done, but I'm going to put a fairly long taper on this. And to make that go faster, I'm going to move over the horn. The rounded horn pushes material out towards the ends more than it does widthwise, and that will also improve your efficiency in drawing out. Notice that I'm rotating the bar 90 degrees left and right between every hammer blow. This helps keep the drawing out square, although sometimes when you need to straighten things up and even out your forgings, you'll work more from one side than the other. We've now drawn that bar out into a square taper. The next thing I'm going to do is forge that to an octagon just by knocking the corners off, and then we'll round it up. Of course, if your goal is a square taper or an octagonal taper, you don't have to go all the way back to round. This is just if you're going to a round taper, square, octagon, round is best practice. As I go to round, I'm rolling this with my holding hand. In this case, it's my left hand. And that way I can keep working it around and I'm not working in one spot over and over again. unless I find a lump, bump, or something else that needs to be dealt with. At this stage, I'm really just refining the surface. I'm not doing any heavy forging, so very light hammer blows. You don't need big, hard swings. I think I want a pointier end on this taper, so I'm going to go back to the very tip of it and blend it in and make it a little bit sharper. Again, square, octagon, then round. This is going to be the handle end of the tool I'm working on, so I'm going to bend a ring in this, starting by putting a bend in it where the ring will actually meet the handle end. Then we'll wrap the ring around on the horn of the anvil. Because this is a small forge, I've got to do this pretty quickly, and I can't stop and reheat it once I start doing that ring. I don't think I'll be able to get it back in this forge. If I make it small enough, I could. It's about a 2.5 inch opening. Sometimes you just need to use a little creativity to get things hot. I could make this ring a hair smaller and bend it cold. It wouldn't hurt anything. But just to illustrate that there are workarounds, I'll go ahead and heat this tail up right in front of the flame, and then we'll just put a little tiny curl on it to finish the handle. I'm going to let this end cool down, then we can turn it around, put the other end in the forge. We're going to draw that end out flat and parallel and let it spread out a little bit. So maybe we'll end up with 3/4 of an inch or an inch wide, but only about 1/8 to 3/16 thick. I will start this by putting a short point on the end of the bar, and that'll make more sense later. Notice I'm raising my holding hand up. This helps me keep the taper centered between the hammer and the anvil. The hammer does half of the taper, the face of the anvil does the other half, and that keeps the point fairly well centered. You could do this just two-sided and push it all the way over to one side and then straighten it and recenter it later, but that's an extra step, and you can avoid it if you just think ahead a little bit. I'm going to use a half-face blow, hammer striking half on the anvil, half off, and I'm doing this at the near edge of the anvil to create a shoulder where I want my flat, drawn-out section to be. This isn't always necessary, but this is a good way to create simple shoulders if you need to. You'll use this a lot. I am doing all this on the face of the anvil because I want this to spread widthwise as well as drawing it out lengthwise. If I worked primarily over the horn, I'd be getting a lot more length, but I wouldn't get the width I want. I'm going to bend this flat section over 90 degrees, similar to the way we did the ring handle on this. And this end is ultimately going to become our little fire rake. Frequently the peen of a hammer, particularly a cross peen or maybe even a diagonal peen hammer, can be used to help move material lengthwise. That's the reason the peens are designed the way they are. And if you do this in conjunction with working over the horn, it is even more efficient. Some people prefer to work at the edge of the anvil, kind of getting that same effect that the cross peen gives you, right at the edge, creating a little fuller marks that are then leveled out back at the face of the anvil. It can also be efficient, and you are working over the heaviest mass of the anvils, so you aren't losing energy like you might over the horn. It's all just a matter of personal preference, and it's worth trying all of these things out to see what works best for you in your shop. Now that's the basics of drawing out. Of course, a power hammer is a wonderful tool for drawing out. Even the smaller power hammers, like my 25-pound Little Giant, does an excellent job drawing things out in this size range, up to about 1 inch actually. And bigger power hammers can do a more efficient job. It can also destroy stuff really fast. So they aren't something to be taken lightly, but if you're doing a lot of production work, power hammers might pay off. On the other hand, they don't fit the back to basics approach that this series of videos is looking at, so we aren't actually going to be looking at those tools. But even things like hydraulic presses, fly press, treadle hammer, they all have a place in doing some of this basic drawing out, if you've got the luxury of having those tools in your shop. But we ended up with a very nice little fire rake. This will work very well if you have a coal fire, charcoal, coke, something like that. Or you can use it in your wood stove. It's a perfectly suitable poker for the wood stove or the fireplace, or to take camping if you need to maintain your campfire. As far as the little Atlas knife and tool forge is concerned, this did everything I needed it to do. It's an economical forge. I think I only ran it at about 8 psi this entire time, and had plenty of heat to do the work that I was doing. If you run it up, it should be able to get up to forge welding heat. That's sometimes altitude dependent. But like I said, I'm going to do a more thorough review of this forge in an upcoming video. I may try to do that in the next couple of days and just go ahead and get that out while we're looking at this forge. But if you're just starting out, just setting up shop, this is a viable option for a lot of what people are doing. You're going to be able to do hooks and bottle openers, cooking forks, steak turners, all those basic introductory projects that most of us start with. But more importantly, if you're into knife making, which seems to be one of the most popular ways people get into blacksmithing these days, this forge is really designed for knife making, and if you're doing reasonably sized blades, you're going to be able to do everything you want in a forge this size. So maybe in the next video we'll review this and actually forge out a knife. Probably won't get it finished, but we can actually do some of the forging in this forge. If you're enjoying this series, make sure you check back. We've got lots more fundamental skills to look at, as well as more on basic tooling, shop setup, and even how to make a lot of the tools you're going to need. Punches, chisels, tongs, all of those things you can make right here at the anvil. In the meantime, I hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, stay safe, wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next video.